Hi Hunters, we're back in Monster Hunter discussion topic. I'm aiming for this video to be a bit relatively short, but we shall see. We just had 20th anniversary and we celebrated the top 20 monsters that were voted by fans out of over 200 monsters, and that doesn't even include frontier monsters. So looking back, we sure had a lot of monsters, and it is amazing how far we have come with this particular series. But with Monster Hunter Wilds coming ever closer, we always wonder what is the direction that they are taking when it comes to designing a new monster. Will they make a lot more wyverns? Will they bring frontier monster back to the mainline series? Will they make more monsters from scarce species like the snakes, insects, and amphibians? Or will they actually make more new species monsters? Only time will tell. So in this video, let's get our imagination going a bit wild, shall we? So in this video, I'm going to make a new monster species based on real-world animals. And also with people are speculating that Monster Hunter Wilds will occur in the New World, in a direct sequel to Monster Hunter World, as they are still bigger lands beyond the area of Elder Recess and the Great Ravine. Since Monster Hunter World was all about the new discovery, I'm sure Wilds will be pretty much a continuation of that theme. So it makes sense if there are new monster species being discovered in that particular region, and we might even trace the origin of some elder dragons that doesn't have dragon bodies like Kirin, Yamatsukami, and few other more. Also, I just want to say the reason I'm making this video is because the series is already overloaded with Flying Wyvern, and it is time to be like Monster Hunter 4 again and start making new species to really expand the world of Monster Hunter. Just like how Monster Hunter 4 introduced 3 different new species: the amphibians, the snake wyvern, and the Temno Karen. I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly. So I have an expectation that at least we might get one new species. Before we start with my 5 ideas, do leave a like and subscribe to my channel to show your support and help me reach 500 subs by the end of March and 1,000 subs by the end of the year. And in return, you will get to hear some interesting discussion topics for Monster Hunter every week and get to hear my grumpy voice. Your support will really help turn my life around in a much better direction. Anyway, I'm sorry for yapping. Let's just get into the ideas. Turtle. This is something that I've been obsessing with for some reason since I learned about the existence of certain elder dragon from Monster Hunter Online. When you think about it, the only turtle we have in Monster Hunter franchise so far is an elder dragon called Tartaronis from Monster Hunter Online. When you think about its ecology, it makes no sense that a sea turtle is able to fly when it lacks wings, even though it has a giant shell on its back. Maybe that's why it hasn't made its appearance in mainline series, since it doesn't fit the imaginative realism philosophy of mainline Monster Hunter games. But maybe the ecology of the monster can be explained further if this monster is released in Monster Hunter Wilds. But we are not here to talk about Tartaronis. Instead, this monster should have species that might have a relation to it, and I don't think that is a far-fetched idea. Since once again, Monster Hunter Wilds might be all about a new discovery. But when it comes to combat, if you're looking for a tortoise monster, they should be relatively slow if we are talking about standard tortoise, that is. But I believe there are all kinds of mutations that could have occurred for this species that caused it to have different body parts. And Monster Hunter team tends to have that kind of crazy imagination and creativity. And also, tortoise monsters will be relatively defensive, and there are a lot of interesting gameplay that could be designed with using tortoise shell in mind. For instance, going full defensive and hide in the shells when overwhelmed, maybe even only hiding certain body parts if it's continuously attacked on that spot, or even having the shell to store sharp skills that can be shot in 360 direction. And maybe as a player, our aim is to get it out of its shell so we can beat the crap out of it. It can be a very tough hunt, but it can also be very fun when everyone is able to accomplish the objective of taking the monster out of its shell. If non-game designer like me can even think for such simple ideas, Monster Hunter developers should be able to come up with even more crazy ideas, assuming they see this species could exist in the universe of Monster Hunter. As for names, I can't come up with some fancy Latin name, just call it shell beast or even just a tortoise species. And the second monsters will be griffin, or large birds. So far, dragon-like creature has dominated the world of Monster Hunter, especially when it comes to Sky. But when you think about another fantastical monsters that can be an equal of a dragon to a certain extent, you always think about griffin or griffin. As of now, the only bird-like monster we have is Mephisto, and it is classified as bird wyvern for some reason. It's kinda weird saying that Mephisto and the Yankutku are similar. The other clear one is the Hypnocatrice that clearly has a bird beak, but once again the skeleton is very similar to bird wyvern like the Kutku. So we are looking for different kinds of skeleton for a griffin. With griffin, instead of typical 2-leg wyverns, they are going to be on 4 legs. We know that they previously had problems with monsters that interact too much with the ground, but after many years, I trust that problem should be fixed, and even Lagiacrus will be back in Monster Hunter Wilds. I really hope so, since he got 3rd place and all. With the release of Dragon's Dogma 2, we are sure to see some griffin in that game. So it is not unrealistic to think that the developers from Dragon's Dogma might share some of its asset with Monster Hunter developers. So for the chance, it is quite high a bird-like creature with 4 legs are added in the future Monster Hunter games, as soon as Monster Hunter Wilds, hopefully. When it comes to combat, it will involve a lot of aerial stuff since it's a bird, but when it comes to ground, pretty sure it's going to use its sharp beak and sharp claws, and I assume a lot of wind pressure. I haven't done enough research yet about Griffin in general, but the basic of its movement should be everything that I just mentioned. And as for variation, it would really depend on how to implement imaginative realism with Griffin. As for names, let's just call it winged beasts. The third one will be Kirin-like creatures. We know that Kirin is a mysterious creature that doesn't resemble any other monsters in the world of Monster Hunter at the moment, and they haven't found any record of seeing similar monsters being sighted. However, it is still must be descended from other monsters and should have some other monster that is evolved from, or some other monster that evolved from Kirin. So it makes sense that there might be some similar looking monsters to Kirin out there. Plus, most of the mammal-looking monster are either goes into the Fang Beast, Brute Wyvern, or Fang Wyvern, even though they might be a herbivore, like Gammoth for example. I think it makes sense to classify some of these monsters into a new classification, like Gammoth, the Bull Drum, maybe horse-like monster like Kirin, or rhino-like monster, or even a Triceratops-like monster. And when it comes to combat, we already have Kirin, a monster that can control lightning. So there's a lot of version that you can do with that for more grounded approach combat. So elementless like the Diablos, to even something absurd like Flaming Unicorn or something. So there's a lot of potential there. And as for name, maybe call it a Hoof Beast or something. And the fourth species would be worm or other invertebrates. You guys might think it might be similar to Snake Wyvern, but I personally think it is fine since this monster will focus on more monster that doesn't have backbones, like the sandworm or even centipede. With Monster Hunter Wilds that is most likely going to focus a lot to its environment, I think it makes sense that we're getting some more creatures that doesn't conquer the land, sea, or sky, but rather the underground. The way it fought will be like a piscine wyvern that likes to bury its body, but it will have snake wyvern-like body, and your job is to drag them out of the ground. With normal sandworm, there probably won't be that many parts that can be broken since they have just a cylindrical body and once again doesn't have backbones. So there might be some creativity that needs to be tested in order to make this kind of species to be interesting. Maybe like adding tentacles that can be cut so that it won't be able to attack you from multiple directions. Or it might be able to spawn a bunch of smaller worms, much like the Giginox or Ragnakadaki. But when it comes to Monster Hunter, the design has to be very, very cool, or at least very interesting. So I don't know, how do you make a worm interesting? Just a thought here, because I've been into dunes lately, and the sandworm there really piqued my interest, and I would love to see some sandworm monster in Monster Hunter franchise going forward. And the last one is a big if. maybe in the future when underwater combat has been refined that doesn't cause headache for the player, even though I'm one of the players that's actually really enjoy underwater combat. And should it comes back one day, we need more monster than just Leviathan. And I was thinking of more like squid or octopus-like monster, since when it comes to mythical monster outside of Leviathan, it would be a Kraken. I won't talk much about it since the chance of us getting underwater combat probably won't come anytime soon, and probably it will take a few more games after Monster Hunter Wilds. But I think it is interesting to just keep that in mind, since the potential of Monster Hunter is more than just hunting on lands. And let me give you one extra idea. I was thinking maybe a rodent-like animal could become a species, like a rat, a porcupine, a hedgehog, a skunk. It's just nice to see some cute-looking animals, but they are still pretty deadly. And it's nice to see some more monster that is more peaceful by nature. Alright, that's all species of new monsters for Monster Hunter Wilds or future Monster Hunter that I can think of. As you guys might have noticed, all of the monsters are the ones that doesn't have resemblance to any other monsters that currently exist in Monster Hunter universe, and they're not classified with a specific monster type, with exception maybe like Kirin and Tartaronis like monster, since both are elder dragons. And maybe one day they can have their own classification. And you don't need to be an elder dragon to be tough, since we know Rajang is a very tough monster, or even the final boss of Monster Hunter Generation Ultimate, the Atalka. I can always go crazy with my ideas, but I have to always keep in mind that all monsters in Monster Hunter have explanation on why they are designed to be that way, why it attacks on a certain way, why they appear in certain locations, why do they have these elements, and many more considerations. This kind of consideration might have not been noticed by the majority of the players, but for those who actually do, it really boosts the immersion that you get from playing the game, and in turn also increasing the love for the franchise, since it is more than just about killing a monster, but it is more like living in a world that is filled with creatures that have their own life and have their own role as being part of the nature. Also, there's something that I really want to clarify. I want to emphasize my stance on this. I don't think adding these new species in big number is a good thing, and wyvern and dragon-like monsters should still dominate Monster Hunter Wilds, since Monster Hunter as a franchise is well loved because of their wyverns and dragons, and how creative their design are while looking extremely cool, like the Valstrax, Basilgeese, and many more. So at least add one more species and focus more on other species that really like in numbers, like the bugs or the amphibians. And that's my stance on how Monster Hunter Wilds monsters should be. Anyway, I have talked like an old man for long enough. I want to hear from you guys. What are the species you want to see in Monster Hunter Wilds? Or any specific real-world animals you would like to see in Monster Hunter? Or rather, do you want to see the developers to put more monster species in Monster Hunter Wilds that doesn't have that many monsters, like the amphibians or snake wyvern? Or you don't want any new species at all? I would like to hear you guys' opinions on this, so let me know all about it in the comment section. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, Hunters. Before I go, don't forget to vote for the best monster theme in Monster Hunter website. You can find the link in my voting video, as we will get new orange theme just for the anniversary. And if you don't know what to vote, just vote for Old Fatalis theme or Sideu's theme, since they don't have a new version of the song yet, and their tracks are banger. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe, as that will really help me to earn a living while at the same time keep making content and improve the quality of it. Until the next video, stay sharp, Hunters.